Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This program, organized by the National Congress of Women, Tea Party and Symposium in observance of International Women's Day 2022 is now called to order. I will now invite you to stand as we recite the National Pledge. I pledge myself to honor always the flag of Guyana and to be loyal to my country, to be obedient to the laws of Guyana, to love my fellow citizens, and to dedicate my energies towards the happiness and prosperity of Guyana. Thank you very much. You may be seated. This afternoon, we are celebrating our women under the theme, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, Break the Bias. I will now like to introduce our chairperson for today's proceeding. She is young Miss Quinella Cameron, who was one of our candidates at the 2020 regional and national election. Could you put your hands together for young Miss Cameron as she takes us through this afternoon's program?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really flattered with the young. Could you keep saying that, please? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here today to chair this program. And I'd like to say a few things. First of all, when I looked at the theme for this year's International Women's Day, I started to reflect on a number of things. And I kind of took apart the theme, and it says gender equality. So that's the first aspect that I'm looking at. It means that there wasn't gender equality prior. So women would have had to struggle to get to this point where we are today, where we can say we're enjoying gender equality. But some of us here, in this context, in democracies, we're enjoying gender equality, but there's some women who are still stifled. All right, some women who are still not allowed to vote. Well, most of them. In some contexts, women are oppressed. They're not allowed to work outside of the home. You know, they're not given so many rights. And so when I look at this theme, I said, you know, this is really good for us because, you know, we have some sort of equality in relation to the other sex. All right? And then it talks about sustainability. We've been sustaining so many things for so many, well, from the time, I guess, time started. We've been mothers, we've been nurturers, we've been working in industries and companies and factories, we've been playing our role. And sustainability carries a notion of continuity. And so women have been playing that role. So I just wanted to say this, and ladies, you look awesome. And you know, we're a bunch of awesomeness. And men, we thank you for your support. All right, now without further ado, I wish to call on Miss the beautiful, awesome, amazing ladies. Let me tell you something. We have to pick up our fellow women. Yes. Talk to me, ladies. Yes. A lot of times, us women are our own worst enemies. Yes. Let us be supportive to ourselves, our own species. I mean, the men, we're still looking for you to support us, but sometimes it starts with us. So we're calling a whole bunch of awesomeness to the podium in the person of Miss Valda Lawrence. She's no stranger to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I wish to recognize within our midst the treasurer of the People's National Congress report. Give a wave, let them see how you're glittering here. That is the treasurer. And also the chief whip, member of parliament, other MPs in our midst. I recognize Honorable Amanza Nazir, Walter Nazir. And there are many, many councillors in our midst. So could all the councillors just give us a raise of hand? Just raise your hand. And take note, ladies and gentlemen, that the majority of the councillors are women. Okay? I would also like to recognize MP Nina Flu Best, regional MP for East Bank, all members of the Central Executive of the great party, the People's National Congress. My first vice of the National Congress of Women, the women's arm of the People's National Congress reform, none other than the Carol Smith. I would like to recognize our dear Sister Cheryl Saxey, who's a life member, former chairperson of the National Congress of Women, from Genevieve Allen, former regional chair for Region Number 4, and former National Secretary of the National Congress of Women. Our National Secretary, Ms. Janice Gonzalez, and all our other members here, including not only executive member but coordinator, Ms. Linda Gomes-Haley. Join with me in putting your hands together for some special ladies in our midst this afternoon. Reverend Valeska Austin A.A., Dr. Jennifer Basley-O'Gree, Ms. Carol Corbin, Ms. Barbara Atterley, and ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves, hold your hands out wide, because I would like to acknowledge the presence of former Prime Minister and Mayor of the city. I welcome all of you to this special tea and symposium of honors as we celebrate each other in anticipation of International Women's Day, IWD, which will be celebrated on Tuesday, the 8th of March 2022. I, like many of you, believe that every day we women should celebrate our womanhood. Y'all don't believe that. However, today is our honor, the honor of the National Congress of Women, to host you beautiful women and handsome gentlemen from the various regions of our beautiful country. We are all gathered here to celebrate the achievements of women and girls across the region and beyond. The National Congress of Women, the women's arm of our party, have made great achievements in addressing women's issues and raising women's economic empowerment, their political participation in every strata of our society, leadership when decision-making power was given to women by the PNC ladies. And let me tell you about the women who ran before us in this organization. Great women. Women who played an integral part in the development of the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, which was ratified by our government. Yes, the NCW, we played our part and laid the foundation. Our women work tirelessly at home to strengthen our legal system and the legal institutions in the interest of our women. And the burden of the Women's Affairs Bureau, that now you hear it is called the Women and Gender Bureau within the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Ladies and gentlemen, that was birthed out of the National Congress. Sisters, we are all aware that we need to continue the fight to liberate more of our women. Despite we have begun to see more of our women folk in decision-making positions, even as CEOs, ambassadors, entrepreneurs, scientists, and the list goes on, we need to see more women involved. Do you believe me? At this time, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy our program of activities set out for you. And let us remember that in everything we do and wherever we go, as women, we must motivate, energize, and enable our women to be catalysts of change in our communities. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawrence. Women are catalysts for change, and I endorse that motion because we've been doing a number of things to ensure that change occurs on many levels: education, health, environment, and so forth. And so it's a hard charge to us today to continue to be that catalyst. Now, at this time, I'd like to call on the treasurer of the PNC, Mr. Fayuz Marceline, apologies, to take his place and say a few words to us.
Thank you, Sessional Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. To the beautiful ladies on the head table, thank you for being here and a part of this program. Members of Parliament and other party functionaries, before I start my presentation here today, there is a woman in the PNCR that's tougher than any challenge this party or country throws at her. It's the challenge that makes her strong. Madam Valda Lawrence, our party's former chairman. Having you as a female power in our party and country, you will continue to establish a light for women in the PNCR and in our country that will surely never dim. Kudos to you, madam. Continue with the grace of God. As party treasurer, International Women's Day under the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. As a tribute to which have always been at the heart of the People's National Congress reform. For too long, our society used tactics, even scriptural quotations, to keep women in shackles, impose restrictions on them, and even define their roles as only reproductive machines for annual production of children, servants in the kitchen, and servants in our laundry rooms. Women today across Guyana and around the world are now empowered, and yes, they are educated, and moreover, they are united with love and womanhood together. The time is now to unleash the pent-up energy of our women folks, to expand their possibilities and capabilities into a productive journey, to give them leadership roles so they can fulfill the dreams and aspirations to lead. Is it a coincidence that progress accelerated during the past 40 years at the same time when women's liberation movement and the advent of aggressive feminism began to spread their wings across the world? No, it is not no magical coincidence. It is the reality in all its flashing. Everyone, whether what gender we are, everyone's success should be an inspiration to one another. We all are strongest when we cheer each other on. In Guyana, there's an old song that reminds us this time a long time. Time does move on relentlessly, leaving behind and meaningless socially imposed limitations. Fortunately, my brothers and sisters, women have now awakened and asserted themselves as equal to men. And rightly so. More women hold prominent executive positions in top educational, financial, and governmental agencies and institutions. Names such as Viola Burnham, Lakshmi Kalicharan, Lisa Punch, who was Miss World Guyana 2015, Robbie Holland, Carmen Monroe, and many more, who names echo loudly in the Hall of Female Power. They have made a difference in the way the world has come to recognize and admire the towering stature of Guyanese women. They have displayed details of their talents, abilities, and innovative minds and ideas in ways that have created a path which can only take this nation to the farthest horizon. Some of the world's greatest leaders were and are women. There is something very special about the woman who dominates in a man's world. It takes a certain grace, strength, intelligence, and fairness, and the nerve to never take no as an answer. Kudos to you, the woman folks, and give yourself your round of applause. Women understands the true nature of humanity. They nurture their pregnancy and they give birth whether it's a boy or a girl. Women are humanity's first teachers. Our nation is in a desperate need for more empowered women, more women of distinction, more women with the knowledge and vision necessary to come face to face with life's difficulties and challenges so that they can shed a new light on this nation. Be as it may, men cannot be cast aside, for they too must be a part of the equation that contains the answer to many of the problems affecting our people. To our Guyanese women and the women that are public servants, single mothers and widows, the struggle is difficult, but the day will come when our women folks and also men will be glad in it. So hold the line of battle, link our arms in unity as our battle song says. Let me conclude with a quotation. Woman maketh man. Behind every success is the brilliant and brave mind of a woman. forget that every day is Women's Day. God bless the People's National Congress Reform and the National Congress of Women, and God bless our motherland, Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corbin. If he were campaigning for the presidency, definitely would have voted for him. All right, thank you so much again, Mr. President. I would like to call now on Ms. Vanessa Kissoon, who is a former member of Parliament, to do a word speaking. Ms. Kissoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the chairperson, members of the head table. I'd like to join at this time with the former minister and NCW chair in observing all protocols. As women, we must stand up for ourselves. As women, we must stand up for each other. As women, we must stand up for justice for all. Michelle LaVaughn Robertson Obama. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Break the bias. As we reflect on this year's theme for International Women's Day, we must strive to empower our women and girls. Because in order for us to break the bias, we must be empowered and given equal access. We must stand up for ourselves and our sisters, mothers, and daughters all across the world with one voice and one goal, which is to empower, not just for a moment or a day, but for a lifetime. Phenomenal woman, Maya Angelou. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my steps, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk in a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes, and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They tried so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's the arch of my back and the sun of my smile. It's the ride of my breasts and the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk too loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the knee of my care. Because I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. No country can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself of the contributions of half of its citizens. Michelle Obama. Today, ladies, I would like to take this opportunity to to wish you all and all women, home and abroad, a happy International Women's Day in advance. And I say, power to our women.
Thank you, Ms. Kissoon, for those words. They resonate well with us women. Could we all stand as we sing Hymn for Guyana's Children? Addressing you today as our presenters, and I wish to hand over this part of this afternoon's proceedings to Ms. Allen, Ms. Genevieve Allen. Allen?
Thank you very much. We are at the highlight of today's program. We have 5 presenters. Reverend Valeska Austin, AA, and Reverend Austin is going to be presenting to us on seeking God first in everyday life. She will be followed by Dr. Jennifer Bastio-Green, and Dr. Green will be presenting to us on keeping healthy in a hectic environment. She will be followed by Mrs. Carol Corbin, who will be presenting to us on maintaining decorum in public office. Mrs. Barbara Ackley will present to us preparation for retirement. Last but not least, we will have Mrs. Cheryl Sampson, AA, presenting to us highlighting women leaders in the People's National Congress board. Reverend Alaska Austin AA is the chairman of the Congregational Union in Guyana. For those of you who don't understand that, she's the chairman of the Congregational Churches in Guyana. I now present to you Reverend Alaska Austin AA.
Madam Moderator, members of the head table, and to everyone gathered here this afternoon, our protocol be observed. My task is to present on seeking God first. The theme for this afternoon is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Break the bias. The reflections for this year's International Women's Day are set in the global context in which the world seeks to see a more equal world among men and women. The word equality works well in mathematics, with all sorts of signs and symbols to show how things equate and relate to one another. But not so for human beings. A critical conversation that is in the world today is the oppression and discrimination of women. We still see a lot of gaps between male and female, as patriarchal systems are still at play in many parts of the world. Women are still when he commanded them to be fruitful and to multiply, subdue the earth and have dominion over the creatures or the affairs of life, not one another. The concept be fruitful and multiply in this context must not be underestimated to only mean the bearing of children, but to produce good and helpful results, to be productive, worthwhile, beneficial, valuable, rewarding, profitable, and advantageous, gainful, successful, and effective. God once called creation very good, and now he says not good, especially for the man to be alone. He did the very good pronouncement become not good, and that is found in Genesis chapter 2, 18 to 22. God the Creator formed the woman from the material taken from the side of man, as the church came from the side of Christ. The Lord God took woman from the side of man, a beautiful type and shadow. Both were of human substance, yet formed differently, and a woman was like the finishing touch and completion of God's creation of mankind. In the Old Testament praises many women in leadership over men, including wives and mothers. It describes women in leadership with God's blessing and no hint that their gender should be disqualified. And there are several women, like the prophetess Miriam, who was sent by God to lead Israel, Deborah, who was a judge, Queen Esther, who had sufficient influence to bring about the destruction of the house of Haman, along with 75,000 enemies of the Jews. She, along with Mordecai, wrote with full authority Esther's decree, confirmed their regulation. Not one Old Testament text says that God permitted women to hold such political or religious authority over men only because of special circumstances, nor they describe these cases as exception to scriptural principles. Although two female monarchs of Israel, Athaliah, Jezebel, even though they were wicked, so were most of Israel's kings. And scripture does not criticize them or any other woman leader of Israel on the grounds that their having authority over men is an inappropriate role for women. Instead, the Old Testament presents women in religious and political leadership as normal. Jesus Christ and women. Jesus, in all his words and deeds, left an example to treat women as equal with men, never subordinated or restricted in roles. And these are found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. His treatment of women as equals defied the judicial, social, and religious customs of his day. On judicial matters where women's rights were curtailed, such as regarding adultery and divorce, he treated men and women equally. In a society that regarded women as less intelligent and less moral than men, Jesus respected women's intelligence and spiritual captivity, as in
event in the great spiritual truths he originally taught to women, such as the Samaritan woman and Martha. The Apostle Paul also was a champion of equality. Many times he affirmed the equality of man and woman by identifying women as laboring alongside men in ministry, by affirming many theological truths that entail the equality of men and women, and by explicitly affirming their equality. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Indeed, gender equality is the source of our strength for a better tomorrow. As the saying goes, the future begins now. We need to break the bias and get back to our God's original plan for the world that reflects His image, in which each person is fundamentally valued. Gender equality guarantees a peaceful, safer, and healthier community that encourages participation and inclusion of both men and women in creating and sustaining communities that reaffirm, respect, and celebrate that being female and male are divine gifts that must not be regretted. It assures more production and a sustained economy as everyone is at peace with each other. In conclusion, men and women were created to complement each other in every aspect of human life. Until that is realized, our world is doomed for failure and destruction. As humans, we must realize that the business of creating the kingdom of God is not in the hands of God Himself, but ourselves. We trust that this year's International Women's Day shall open the eyes of our leaders to understand that change cannot be in isolation. We need each other, and we must strive and work together. God bless you.
Change cannot be in isolation. We must work together as part of God's plan. Thank you very much, Reverend Austin, for guiding us through how we should be seeking God first in our everyday life. I'm now going to invite Dr. Jennifer Baslio Green, who is one of the leading women in Guyana in the field of gynecology and obstetrics. She is also the wife of the elder of our party, Mr. Hamilton Green. And if you were at the program this morning and you saw him and his presentation, you understand that our elder is in very good hands, the hands of Dr. Baslio Green, who is going to present to us keeping healthy in a hectic environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Should I start with you? Yes. I like the fact that part of my CV involves being a wife. I think there are a few other things I could have put instead of that, but thank you. National Chairperson, Mrs. Volda Lawrence, especially Ms. Cheryl Sampson, life member. I think on whose intervention that I am here, pulled out of my garden. I no longer practice, I'm a gardener now. All other protocols observed. In all the equalities and inequalities that have existed, whether we've liked it or not, when it has come to disease and illness, we are sometimes very equal with our male counterparts. And now that we live in a hectic, as the program says, a hectic lifestyle, we have incurred certain illnesses and diseases upon ourselves, and that is simply because our bodies have had to adjust and go through certain changes that we may not have experienced when we did not have the type of lifestyle we have. And one thing I want to allude to this afternoon, before I come down to all the things that we can do, is what is happening now with our bodies in terms of a little hormone, because as you all know, our bodies function, flesh, blood, bones, and little hormones. There's a little hormone within our body that is called insulin. And everybody here has heard about insulin because they've had a grandmother, or an auntie, or an uncle who had to inject themselves with insulin because they had diabetes. And that's basically what we all mostly know about insulin. But did you know that insulin is responsible for placing the food that we eat into the cells of the body, meaning the muscle, meaning the fat cells, meaning the liver? So what has been happening with the hecticness and the stress that we have been having in our lives these days is that we're having what is called insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is setting us up for chronic diseases. Only last week I saw a report which says that the Caribbean per population has one of the highest incidences of chronic diseases. So let's see what happens here. So we eat, we have a lovely meal, and the food is digested. Everybody went to that part in primary school where the food digests and it goes into the bloodstream, and then it goes to the cells. But what happens? When insulin resistance exists, the food is not capable of getting into those cells, be it muscle, be it liver, be it wherever. So what happens is we have an increase of blood sugar in our bloodstream. The pancreas is going to over-secrete again because they want that. The food is no good in the bloodstream. It needs to get into the cells. So there's going to be an increase in production of more insulin so that food can get into the bloodstream. What happens for the liver, for example? When it cannot get into the liver, what happens? The liver produces its own fats, and the liver becomes what is called a fatty liver. A fatty liver is not the greatest functional liver. So there again, we get set up again because the liver is not functioning to deal with glucose. But what it does, it creates a lot of bad cholesterol, and it reduces the production of good cholesterol. So if I'm saying that, think right away. Two diseases that we have, we can look at right away. We're seeing diabetes. We're going to be more prone to diabetes. More fat in the bloodstream. What we getting here? Cardiovascular disease, heart disease, high blood pressure. Yes? And what else are we setting ourselves up for? Cancers. Because with fat, it has been shown, we thought fat was always about storing energy. We know now that fat produces hormones. And so it creates an imbalance in hormones within our bodies, and it sets us up for cancers, particularly female cancers. Breast, endometrial, not cervical, but breast and endometrial particularly, because it sets us up all for colorectal cancer. So here I have presented this picture to you, and it's basically a doom and gloom picture. But as I say, you have to decide which fete you're going to. Are you going to listen to the calypso that says, do what you want with me? Or you're going to listen to the one say, I'll fight him back? What are we going to do? We're here at International Women's Day. We've all heard today we have to gird our waist, we have to be strong, we have to fight, so we have to fight. So it means that we know, knowing what can happen to our bodies because of the increased stress, knowing what can happen to our bodies because we no longer get to exercise. Do you remember when your mother, or your, no, if me, mother for me, for a lot of you, be grandmothers, they got exercise through work. They didn't have washing machines, so they got exercise, they scrub clothes. But we don't get exercise through work. So one of the first things we need to look at is exercise. And I want to give somebody out there some encouragement. Because most times when I speak to people about losing weight, it seems so hopeless. And let's look at it. If you're 150 pounds and you lose 5 pounds, it shows. Everyone says, oh, you look great. Ooh. But if you're 200 pounds, does 5 pounds show on you? No. So there you might be a 200 pounder and you have been exercising, you've been dieting, you've lost 5 pounds, but nobody sees it. And so it deflates you. So let me give you one bit of encouragement. Just losing 5%. 5%. So if you're 200 pounds, 5% would take us to what, 10 pounds? Just losing 10 pounds is going to improve your metabolic profile, meaning you're going to have less insulin resistance and more insulin sensitivity, meaning the cells are going to be better able to utilize the glucose or the food that you put into your body. So exercise is very important. Now, also another problem that it helps is a lot of young women, I don't know how many in this room, everybody's complaining about polycystic ovaries these days. Just losing 5% of your body weight is going to help to correct your problem. It helps food to enter into the cells. So as such, once you start utilizing, you start burning, and just the act of exercising does that. Good. So we have to exercise. Now, what sort of exercise and how much exercise do we need? 30 minutes, 5 days a week, 150 minutes of exercise a week. That is the recommendation. So if I can't get in 30 minutes, 5 days a week, can I settle for 20? Yes, you can. And if you can't do 20 minutes all at once because you get up in the morning, you have the children to send to school, blah, 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 blah. Why not start off with 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, break it up. It doesn't matter. You break it up and you get it. Do you need to go to the gym? No. You can exercise at home. You have steps, walk up and down. You don't want to walk, run. Okay? Find exercise within your home and make it count. So exercise is important. The other thing with exercising, if you can't do it on your own, find a companion. Find a friend. Whether it's your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your mother, whoever. Find a companion. I have found that as women, sometimes we need cheerleaders. So find a cheerleader. You know, this is a cheerleader. Don't find somebody who's going to pull you down. You know, you have some friends, they love you to death, but they're always telling you how fat you are. And if you lose 5 pounds, they still can't tell you that you're looking good. No, you want a cheerleader. So exercise is important. And remember, you'll get a side effect of the exercise. You're going to look good. For all the women who want to look sexy and whatever, you're going to look good. Your waistline going to go in. Because right now, we're asking women to have a waistline of under 30. We want women to have a waistline of under 30. A waistline of over 30 sets you up for what is called visceral fat, fat around your organs. Fat around your organs is different to fat under your skin. Fat around your organs is the fat that produces the hormones. I see some people looking at me as if, oh boy, too much of me. No, you can do it. You know, and this has nothing to do with there are some very thin people who have big waistlines, huh? If there are people in here who sew, they know that. There's some thin people with big waistlines. So, so that is it on exercise. So what can we do in terms of eating now? How do we help ourselves via our food? Cut down on your calories. Calories need to be cut down on. And then, you know, there's a thing I usually call, when I eat certain foods, I get so angry with myself, I say, oh my God, I'm eating empty calories. And empty calories are what I refer to as, you know, the feel-good foods that are not necessarily feeling good on your body. You know, like the corn curls and the chips and the pastry, the things that you like, they sweeten your mouth. But you know, they're empty calories. So basically, you have to try and get a balanced diet. And you know the good thing about school now, as opposed to when I went to school, everybody knows that chart. With a balanced diet and you eat something from each group and I didn't have that chart when I was growing up. I'm very jealous that I didn't have that chart. So eat a balanced diet. Bear in mind, you need to have protein in your diet. Basically, most of us eat too much carbs. Most of us eat too much carbs. When you look at the average Guyanese plate, is a mountain of rice and some stew on top. Cut down on the rice. Make sure your plate looks like a rainbow. Put some color in it. Oh gosh, put some color, some orange, pumpkin, some green, some lettuce. Think about it. Think about, you know, almost everybody here did scrapbooks in school and they like to color the page and make it look nice. Do the same thing with your plate. Make your plate look colorful and keep your calories at bay. I want to talk about one thing, one trend in foods that I'm seeing a lot. Everybody's making smoothies. We live in smoothie times, and everybody's telling me, oh, what do you have for breakfast? Oh, I had a smoothie. And I would say, so what did you have in your smoothie? And when I'm analyzing the smoothie, the amount of fruit that goes into the smoothie, that by the time your smoothie hits your stomach, you have an instant sugar rush into your bloodstream. Remember, it is always better to eat fruit and drink water. Because when you eat fruit, you have the benefit of what with the food? With the fruit? Fiber. You have the benefit of fiber. And because of the benefit of fiber, you have a slower absorption of the fruit, of the sugar that's in, it's the same sugar in the fruit, but it's a slower absorption. So you do not have a sugar rush into your bloodstream. If you have a sugar rush into your bloodstream, what happens? Insulin gets a rush too. Insulin makes a rush too. So you're not helping yourself with that. So watch your foods. Remember, you're trying to prevent with diet. Hypertension, diabetes, and cancers. Keeping your weight steady is one of the most important things in keeping yourself healthy. Keeping your weight steady. You know, I'm sure somebody, like my mother, for example, has always been 132 pounds all her year, all her life. My God, it's disgusting. But she's very healthy. She's what, 80? I can't tell you how old she is. She's in her 80s. She's going to kill me if she knows I tell you her age. But she still walks. And that's why I found that, you know, keeping your weight steady is very important. Are you overweight now? Can you get your weight steady? Of course you can. We are fighters. We are fighter women. So we could get our weights down. We could get a steady weight so our body knows this is where we're at. This is how we manage. All right? Now, let's look at some of the social aspects of keeping ourselves healthy. We are not islands. We are not islands. I had an experience with this. I'd gotten some leave and I had some stuff to do, and so I was home by myself and I was so happy I didn't have to go to work and I didn't have to deal with these troublesome people at work, and I was really happy. And then after a few days, I missed people. I missed people. And I remember getting dressed and going to the stores and speaking to the sales girls. And it hit me at that time, we are social creatures. And part of being healthy is socializing, We must have social networks. Social networks are not necessarily, what's it again? TikTok and Facebook. And we need that human contact where you can look into somebody's eyes and see that you're appreciated. They'll give you advice. So surround yourself with some friends, good friends. People who will support you, people who will be there for you, people who will tell you when you're wrong. But even when they tell you when you're wrong, they do it with love and grace. So I know I only have 5 minutes, and I know that after this, that Mrs. Lawrence is going to ask me to come again to give have a longer intercourse with you, because there's so much more to say. And remember, I'm not working, so I'm at home, so I'm so happy to have this social intercourse with you. So before she chases me, I'm going to go. But so remember, so we're looking at diet, we're looking at exercise, and we're looking at social interaction. Those are your basics. There are other things that we can do. But we want to maintain our body in people who did bio and say homeostasis and balance. We're trying to get that balance. So on that note, I end, and I'm going to give you all just one little bit of humor before I go. I'm wondering what's going to happen to me today, because the last time I accepted an invitation from this August body, it was called the WRSM at that time, there was a gentleman in the crowd who I did not know, and the gentleman sent me a note congratulating me on my presentation. So I don't know if I'll get another note today. So I'm waiting to see if I'm going to get another note of proposition. It worked out, we got married, but
as Dr. Basdio Green spoke, I looked around at your faces and your reaction. I wanted to challenge Sister Carol, but I can't challenge Sister Carol because I'm quite sure if she used the tape measure, her waist, Sister Carol, her waist is about 30 inches. Sister Carol, you're not responding to me. I guess I have to challenge Sister Brenda. What is your waistline? But nevertheless, we have to get, she said exercise and diet. And the simplest is that we walk up and down the stairs, either in the morning or in the afternoon. And we tag team each other. The topic was keeping healthy in a hectic environment. Too many of us, we have to go to work. You're up. Whatever is to be done at home, you're out at work. Some of us are not on our feet. You are sitting at a desk. You are back home. Chores, you lie down and sleep. I'm quite sure that you would have learned some things today about how the body functions and how we as women can take care of ourselves so that we can have long lives. Could you please put your hands together for Dr. Basdio Green? I'm going to invite Mrs. Carol Corbin. She's our next presenter. Mrs. Carol Corbin served as the chairman of the Procurement Commission. She worked for a number of years at the CARICOM office in Guyana. And she is the wife of the third leader of the Pncr, Mr. Robert Corbin. Colonel Corbin is coming to present to us. And I think, ladies, that we ought to take some notes, because she is going to say to us how we should maintain decorum in public office. Colonel Corbin.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dr. Green, after that discussion, I wonder how many of us are going to eat what has been presented to us in those boxes. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy International Women's Day to you all. I wish to thank the organizers of this forum for inviting me to share with you some thoughts about this very important issue of maintaining decorum in public office. It's directed This issue is important for both men and women, so I'm not specifically speaking to women. Now, it's also a very timely issue, particularly because of what we have been observing in what we would consider our highest public office, our National Assembly. This has caused some raging public discourse lately. Now, decorum may generally be defined as appropriateness and propriety of behavior, conduct, civility, and general appearance. Now, in what we consider public office, particularly the legislative environment, the emphasis may be on proper order, etiquette, and overall conduct. It should be noted that behavior in the home is very different from what should be observed in the official environment. In public office, it's important to ensure that the highest moral and ethical standards are maintained to achieve trust, respect, and confidence among colleagues. Rules of decorum should therefore be established. That is, a code of conduct should be developed, or a charter or employment contract. And all of these should detail the expected behavior. If persons conduct themselves in a manner that elicits respect, others will follow them willingly, and objectives of the organization will be more easily achieved. Decorum is not limited to the more obvious behavioral patterns, such as speech and dress. But public officials should also know what is expected of them in key legal areas, such as harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, as well as ethics and conflict of interest. In this regard, there should be mandated harassment prevention and ethics training for all relevant officials. A full understanding of these key concepts will help ensure that persons in public office have a proper foundation for engaging in ethical and professional behavior. Codes of conduct and ethics help officials to execute their responsibilities and functions appropriately. For example, there's a code already established for behavior in the National Assembly of the Parliament. Now, one would not believe so if we've been following what has been happening recently. All members of Parliament should therefore ensure that they acquaint themselves fully with these rules that exist. A key concept that needs emphasis is that of civility. Civility goes beyond the law and is more than just good manners. It is the core of mutual respect and is required that at all times officials speak in a manner that is respectful, responsible, and avoids rude, demeaning, or bullying conduct or statements. There must be respect for certain rules of behavior, the absence of which would result in disharmony and chaos. Most importantly, public officials should refrain from the use of profanity, emotional outbursts, personal attacks, or any speech or conduct that tends to reduce the standing of the organization of which they are a part. Adherence to these rules allows officials to gain attention and respect from society. There should be commitment on the part of each public official to respectful behavior towards each other. Officials should be continuously educated on appropriate roles and regularly reminded about what is expected of them in key areas. Ultimately, this will help them to work more effectively to implement and adhere to a code of conduct and ethics that helps to maintain the desired civility and decorum in public office. Public officials who wish to inspire and lead must demonstrate decorum, particularly in this information-rich age, which demands that individuals in public office communicate effectively. This is an essential credential for public officials, who must at all times demonstrate respect for certain rules of behavior and at all times be cognizant of the need to maintain the respect and trust of the people being served, that is, the public. These officials need to promote an atmosphere where it is readily recognized that there is adherence to appropriate standards of decorum. This behavior must be practiced unceasingly. Media coverage, which is live streaming now, that is the order of the day, has placed a spotlight on the need for civility and decorum. Persons in public office should therefore be aware that they must set the tone, tenor, and pattern of behavior that citizens may look to emulate. In closing, as we take this opportunity to celebrate International Women's Day, we must examine issues that affect women's development and well-being. It is, however, my contention that, unfortunately, women are often held to a higher standard in relation to issues of decorum, while at the same time often having to bear the brunt of the breaches of decorum and ethical behavior. All should be held to the same high standards, and there should be consequences for breaches equally applied. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Corbin. As you spoke, I tried to assess the number of young people that are here this afternoon. And I pondered that the message that you brought here to us, that they truly understand what you said to us. We are presently live streaming, and today everybody goes live because of technology. Regardless of what is occurring, what is happening, there is something going live. And we need to be very, very careful that you do not send the wrong message. And so as women, as sisters, I implore on us that we maintain decorum in whichever area of our lives, in whatever we are doing. Thank you very much, Comrade Carol Corbin. Please put your hands together for her. Mrs. Barbara Atlee is coming next, and Mrs. Atlee served as Guyana's Consul General to New York. She served in the UNICEF office, Guyana, Africa, and Asia, with responsibility for education. Mrs. Atlee is going to share with us preparation for retirement. And if you have retired, you can still get some tips of what you can now do. Thank you very much. Mrs. Atlee.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this forum. And I was a bit perplexed when I got the invitation because I wondered whether I was asked to address this particular topic, taking into consideration that I'm actually retired. And it is something that many of us, at some stage or some point in our lives, we have to come to terms with. And I am happy that I was requested to address this topic, because as we go through the topic, I would mention some areas that I faltered with as I was going through my own life. To begin with, when we hear the word retirement, we often consider it as being relevant to quote-unquote old people, or what we now refer to as senior citizens. I recall, as I was growing up, the word retirement seemed far removed from any plans that I had in terms of my career and in terms of my professional development. We often think retirement is a long way off, but it quickly creeps up on us before we could even blink our eyes. What is retirement? Simply put, it is the action of leaving one's job and ceasing to continue with regular work. According to Wikipedia, it is the withdrawal from one's position or occupation or from one's active working life. And I like that part, is your active working life. So you have retirees and you have retiree. You could work it out. The mandatory retirement age for public servants who make up the bulk of the workforce in Guyana is only 55 years. For many of us, the ages 55 through to 65 are the most productive time of our lives. It is a time when we are very comfortable with our profession. It is a time when we are most assertive and comfortable as adults, as we see ourselves as role models and mentors in our work environment. Yet, It is a time when we are required to cease or retire from the workforce. Today, we are addressing women's issues for International Women's Day to be observed on Tuesday. So as I go through this presentation, I will focus mainly on retirement as it relates to preparing women for retirement. In this discourse, I will examine some of the reasons why women fail to prepare for retirement and look at what can be done for women to get ready for a safe, comfortable, and healthy retirement. I'm glad that Dr. Basio went before me because I think she dealt adequately with issues of health. So that will help me to curtail a little on my presentation. To begin with, women make less money than men. And this can be argued. Most women are employed as teachers, nurses, clerks, caregivers, and domestic help, which attract very often the lowest remuneration, thus resulting in women making less money than men. Additionally, many of them find themselves in jobs which do not offer any retirement plan. Secondly, women tend to live longer than men by at least 5 years, creating a significant setback for retirement. In Guyana, life expectancy for women is about 73 years. And I got this from the Bureau of Statistics. While the men, their life expectancy rate is 67. So, a woman who retires at 55 must plan for at least 18 years of retirement. Thirdly, more women than men drop out of the workforce at least for a while to take care of children, sick spouses, or elderly parents. They may not be earning or contributing to any social security fund during those periods. And fourthly, there is a significant lack of information and awareness about retirement and how the various pension schemes function in Guyana. So, what should women do to prepare for retirement? To begin with, they need to be aware of their financial plans. Women should, in a very aggressive way, practice budgeting, which would include their retirement plan. And they should do this very early in their career, as this will help them to make informed decisions and set realistic retirement goals. So, what are some of those things that you need to ensure that you plan and budget for? My mother always said, ensure you have a roof over your head. So, if you're going to build a house or if you have a mortgage, you try as much as possible to either ensure that that is completed before retirement or that you have a few more years left for you to complete your roof over your head.
If you are going to reside in Georgetown or the suburbs or in a rural area, what are your plans for transportation? How are you going to deal with your children? And even in your plans, you must know your cutoff point for your children. It's a tough decision, but it's something that we must address even as we budget for our senior citizen years. For young women now choosing a career, they should consider long-term prospects of the field they are entering, or look for upward mobilities and opportunities within their profession. If for some reason you have to leave one job for another, especially outside of the public service, you should explore options to continue to contribute and invest in any existing retirement plan. Now, I'm guilty of this one, okay? I work with the public service, but then I moved on in my own profession. But I never look back at things like NIS and another pension fund that I will mention later. So it's very important that you pay close attention to all that you can benefit from in your retirement years. Fortunately for me, at the time that I made the move, I had enough contributions which entitled me to receive benefits from NIS. Secondly, it is important that as women, we know our worth. Studies show that many women tend to settle for lesser salaries and lesser increase in salary options, or they do not want to confront their managers or their organization for a salary increase. As women, we should develop good negotiating skills to better articulate our worth and our needs. Women may expect to have a husband or a partner to help with expenses in their retirement years, but very often, death and divorce alters the best plans they may have. In cases of divorce, women may quickly agree to terms just to get it over with. I don't want nothing for me. Legal long you wait. Or they may hesitate to ask what they really need, or what they really worth, or what they're really entitled to. Do not be reluctant. Do not hesitate to discuss all aspects of the division of property, maintenance, and always remember his retirement plans as well. You are part of it once he was your husband. Sorry guys, I'm not bashing you, but it's a reality, and a lot of women have encounter these same problems in their lives. Thirdly, they need to be knowledgeable about Social Security and retirement plans that exist in Guyana. In Guyana, there are 3 senior citizen benefits one must consider. You know, I'm an old teacher, so I can ask anybody, could tell me the 3? Old age pension, NIS. I know the government pension is always there. What else do they? Huh?
And public service pension that you get from the Ministry of Finance.
Yes, that is.
But there's one that is always overlooked, and I'm going to address that now. Right? We have the contributory NIS pension scheme, which one becomes eligible for at the age of 60. But what happens? Many of us wait until we are age 60, and then we are going to apply. It is important that you begin checking on your NIS contributions and everything at least 5 years before you retire. There are a number of issues that women, and I can say men, do encounter when it comes to NIS. Some of them fall short of contributions because the organization wasn't paying it. Some of them, a very, very common one, is name change. They got married and they never report to NIS they're married, so when they turn up with the document, that becomes an issue. So it is very important that we check on that. The second one is the non-contributory senior citizens pension scheme. So that one kicks in at age 65. But sometimes we wait, and we wait, you know, you're still trying to come to terms that you're now really a true senior citizen, that you're really 65. And you wait and you do not apply. Now when you wait 1 year and 2 years down the line to apply for this senior citizens pension, it is not retroactive. So you lose out. So they will only give you, after you go through the whole process of proving who you are and that you're living in Guyana, you're really a Guyanese, etc., they will only give you from the month that you actually submitted your application. So these are little things that people tend to overlook. A third scheme that I really had to do some follow-up research on is called the Dependents Pension Fund. Anybody remember that one? Eh? The widows and orphans. And you know, once you're a public servant, a pensionable public servant, you are contributing, or you should be contributing to that scheme every month. But there are a lot of things that I learned so much about this scheme. And I even learned that after I left the public service, right, that because I didn't submit a claim to them, good, I could have been refunded all that I paid in. Good? Yes. I get it, it's gone. It's gone down the line, in other words. I can't claim it anymore. So there are rules about that in terms of if you're coming off on retirement and you're not married, good, and your children are over, I think, 21 years, you can get back all that you paid into the scheme. So there are lots of little things that we need to get acquainted with. Good? Yes, so I think it's important because, you know, we might say it's a small amount, but every cent counts because you can put it away, you can make sure that you have it saved for a particular project. Good? I think one of the things as women's organization that we need to do is also to educate other women who are self-employed, who are domestic workers and childcare workers, those women who are vendors and entrepreneurs. They need to know more about how they can benefit from these various schemes that are available like NIS, because I understand that they too can apply, and I hope they are, all of you here can contribute, make the minimum contribution to NIS so that you can benefit from it after you reach the age of 60. You don't have to be employed by someone to pay into NIS. Women should, I want you to listen carefully to this one here. Good? Women should check to ensure that they are the beneficiary on their husband's retirement accounts. You want me to repeat that one? Women should ensure that they are the beneficiaries on their husband's retirement account. Let me tell you, we had a colleague at the UN who was divorced and remarried and had a second family. And then he died. Okay? His second family was a young girl with 3 children, and she was from Indonesia. Okay? And after he died, and she submitted and she tried to get some money, it was, sorry, his first wife was still his beneficiary on the office official documents. It was a sad affair, but it is real, and I know that it has happened to other people. So what the UN what they would do is every year they send a document so you can indicate if there are any changes in your status for your benefit, or if there are any changes of the beneficiary that you have submitted before. So I know this is a very sad one. Many women are caught up in work environments where abuse of authority and harassment occur. Am I lying? In such cases, they should exhaust all avenues to have such matters addressed, so that they do not make rash decisions that would jeopardize their retirement plan. What I'm saying here is you just don't get mad and resign and left the work, right? Try to I'm not saying you must stay in abusive relationships or under abusive conditions, but exhort and make sure that if you have to leave, that all this information about your retirement plans are well covered. If you know you got to live 2 years, you got to know how to tuck in, right? Hold your tongue and move on. Don't let nobody jeopardize your retirement benefits. Where am I? Good. As I said, I was going to move on to healthy lifestyles, but Dr. Basio mentioned that. But what I would like to leave with you in terms of your health issues is that you should do regular and complete physical examinations, and any chronic conditions that you have, they should be flagged, especially in your NIS records, so that if you need to claim any health benefits after you retire, it will be on record. Because if you come up with it after you retire, they do not honor those benefits. For me, the most important thing, as I said, I couldn't believe I'm standing up here talking about retirement. But we need to get mentally prepared for retirement. Some women fear the prospect of retirement. They're scared. I'm going to be retiring. But it is advisable that one becomes mentally prepared for this phase in their life. Know your passion, something that you like doing that you can move on to. What are some of the things that you can do and be gainfully active during your retirement years? you can begin to engage in those activities even before your retirement. So if you like your little gardening, you like painting, you like craft, right? You should start doing it before. Maybe the work that you're doing does not give you the opportunity and the time to do it, but at least have that, what you're going to do after retirement, in mind, and work and put your mind towards it. My husband told me when I was preparing this presentation, he said, "Girl, I didn't realize that you like making all these crafty things to put in the house until now." I said, "Yeah, because I have the time now, I can do it." And you do things that you like and you enjoy, and you can sit back and admire your little handiwork. In conclusion, remember, spending your golden years traveling the world or settling into a comfortable, relaxed lifestyle without the need to work may be enticing for some. But for others, it may not be as exciting due to financial constraints or simply because of a desire to keep working. Now, if we were to go over the 55 years, we know that we could keep going and going and going. So, it is not a time for you to really hang up your hat, but you can find something that you can be engaged in. It may not pay as well as your job that you were doing, but it can keep your living expenses going while you have all the different retirement, pension, and NIS tucked away for use at a later time. Retirement is a comfort that requires good planning. Good planning. So let us as women aim at making life after retirement the best part of our lives. Happy International Women's Day to all. Thank you.
I'm just going to use the words that Sister Barbara used last. Let us as women use retirement or after retirement as the best days of our lives. Sisters, those of us who did not have the plan, it is time for us to take out our pens. You know, sometimes we say, I have it. I have a mental plan, you know. But I think it's time for us to take out our pens and our notepads and begin to put words on those pads. So that, I mean, I am past the retirement age. You can continue to enjoy your life because you have a plan. When Sister Barbara touched on the dependence fund, those of you who are in the public service, especially teachers, we pay how much ever it is for all the years. And when you retire and you turn up there, Sister Barbara, they say that because you are married and you have children, that you cannot get any return of your contribution. But there are some men who boast that because I wasn't married and they ain't got no child bearing my name, I got a little from the dependence fund. I want to say to us, that Sister Barbara mentioned, Dependence Fund, the NIS scheme, and I know that some of the trade unions have got retirement schemes that we need to make use of all of the opportunities that are available to us so that you can go, you must not only see a cruise happening in the Caribbean, that you have a plan to one day that you will be a part of that cruise. Thank you very much, Mrs. Atterley. Before I ask the senior life member of the National Congress of Women to come, I just want to do some acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge the National Congress of Women in the New York branch. We want to thank you for your support because you are here with us online this afternoon. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our General Secretary, Sister Geeta Chandan Edmonds. Could you give us a wave? They didn't see the wave. Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Member of Parliament, our own Dr. Karen Cummins. Where are you? Oh, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Our final presenter will be Comrade Cheryl Sampson, AA. Comrade Sampson would have served in the field of education for over 30 years. But you won't believe this, that Comrade Sampson served the WRSM/NCW for nearly 50 years. Yes. She had the privilege of serving under a number of national chairpersons, and she moved through the ranks from field secretary, education secretary, assistant national secretary, national secretary, national chairperson of the National Congress of Women. And she is surely the best person to take us through this topic of highlighting the work of women leaders in the People's National Congress. Thank you. Come and stand.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. All protocols observed. The National Congress of Women was born many, many moons ago. In 1957, a number of women, and we always talk about them. Today I just mentioned their names and nothing more. Jane Phillips Gay and Winifred Gaskin and Hyacinth Goddett and Lucille Cox David. Those ladies went to Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham and said, we would like to form a women's arm. That was when the People's National Congress was formed, and at the same time,
the People's National Congress Women's Auxiliary came into existence. 1957 to now, you can do the math. Today I'm not going to speak about those ladies. I'm going to mention some others, because we have had many, many leaders who've gone before us, and some are still here. Before I start my naming or what, I want to mention something that the National Chair in her opening remarks, her welcoming remarks, said that the National Congress of Women had a part to play in CEDAW, the Committee for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And as a woman, that is one document you must try to read. You can find it online. Just Google CEDAW, the acronym CEDAW, and you will find out. And I say this because it was in 1980 at the Copenhagen Conference of the United Nations World Conference of Women that the CEDAW document came up. And Guyana was one of the first countries that not only signed on to it, but they ratified it. And I had the good fortune in 1981 to be at the United Nations when they decided that they will put into operation CEDAW. And I remember in my presentation to the third committee, in closing off, I said to the President that Guyana, having signed on to and ratified it 1 year ago, is interested in being a part of CEDAW. I didn't know that somewhere in one of the rooms at the UN, there was a Jamaican lady who had come to Guyana many years ago, Dr. Lucille Mathurin Mayer. She was then Assistant Secretary General to the United Nations, and she was listening. By the time I got back to the office, Ambassador Sinclair had said to me that Dr. Mayer called to find out who was in third committee for Guyana. And then when she was finished with that conversation, she said to him, Guyana is 1 day late. Because according to the document they had sent out, the closing date for any person to apply or to be nominated was the day before I was due to speak at the UN. But because we were a developing country, we were told that we have 2 weeks extension. And Dr. Mayer, because she knew Guyana and she knew our women and she knew women of the Women's Revolutionary Socialist Movement, decided that she was going to lobby for Guyana to be on CEDAW. I say this so that you can know some of the history and you can tell people about it. Her nomination was, and she said to Ambassador Sinclair, I will help you to lobby for your candidate as long as you put Shirley Field Ridley. She had known Shirley because they were in Jamaica together. When we told Shirley Field Ridley, she said, no, not me, put Desiree Bernard. And it was a back and forth, a back and forth. And one Saturday morning, I was where I was staying. Ambassador Sinclair called me and he said, where are you? I said, I'm at home. He said, how do I get Shirley? And I laughed. I said, she's at the WRSM headquarters today because they got a meeting. He said, come over and make the call. The office was over there, the executive was meeting. I called and Maureen Bacchus answered me. And I said, may I speak with Common Shirley Field Ridley? And she said, hold on. And by the time she went to call Common Field Ridley to come to the phone, I gave the phone to Ambassador St. Clair. So when Shirley came to the phone and thought she was speaking to me, she ended up speaking to Ambassador. And she said, we are scams. But after he spoke with her and sort of convinced her, she sent through her CV. In those days, we had email and all of those things. You had something called, what was that thing? It wasn't a fax machine. Anyhow, whatever it was. But this thing used to come to on the machine and some long rolls of paper. She sent it through. It went through. I don't know what happened to the UN. And Shirley Field Ridley was appointed or elected to serve on that committee. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after she passed, and because we had somebody at the UN who was interested in Guyana, Dr. Mayer went after it and said, Guyana must get the position. And so Desi Bernard, who surely wanted to go in the first place, went. And at the first sitting of the UN meeting of CEDAW, Guyana's representative, Justice Desi Bernard, became the secretary, what they called the rapporteur. She served as a rapporteur for 1 year, and when elections came up after the first year, she became the president of that committee, the chairman of that committee, for 2 consecutive terms. So she served for 4 years. So, Madam Chair, I don't think you ever knew that sort of the, history, but the WRSM was really interested, and they were part of CEDAW. And Guyana, whenever the history is written, it is recorded that Guyana served as the first rapporteur and 2 successive terms as president. Anyhow, I didn't come to say that, but I thought I'd make that. Now, the women of the PNCWA were interested in organizing our women. Under Jane Phillips Gay, they worked from 1957 to 1976. Some people remember that in 1975 there was the International Women's Year. And so there was a conference in Mexico, and at that conference they said to countries, go back, reorganize your women, set up women's affairs bureaus, and so forth. Our Guyana delegation, which is made up of Viola Burnham, Ermia Johnson, and Maureen Bacchus, who was the secretary here at the time, they came back and things started to move. And so you had another breed of women coming on board. Viola Burnham took over as chairman of the organization, and it was at that point that the name was changed to the WRSM. When I joined the WRSM, I joined the organization when it was the WRSM. And I think that all the folks, most of them who have gone before, and may their souls rest in eternal peace, they were scouts. And when I say scouts, they're looking for people to pull on board. Literally looking for people to pull on board. So you found that the organization decided to spread out across the country. And after we had become regionalized, we had groups in every region. I mentioned some names. I was trying to remember some, but I don't remember all. In Region 1, we had people like Joylyn December and Patricia Fredericks, Rhoda Fredericks, and the girl Jones. Ken Jones' wife. I don't remember her first name. Region 2, we have our own Doreen Duncan, who is also a life member still around. But we had names like Mary Williams, Mary Burroughs, Vera Venture, Iris Gibson, Mabel Sandy, Eslyn Smith, Olive Pearson, Doris Cordis, Lynette Lowe, Olga Stephanie. And I couldn't remember Doris Cordis' name this morning. And I called Comma Duncan. And I said to her, the short lady who lived at Good Hope, not far from you, and she had all these award trees in her yard. And she said, who the girl? And a couple minutes after she said, Cordis. I said, that is the lady. There were certain people you remembered were certain things. And I'm sure Common Hamilton Green will remember that tiny woman, Mabel Sandy, paddling her canoe out of the Pomeroon to come to activities of the People's National Congress. From Region 3, you had people like Doreen Bob, Agnes Exeter, Enid Abrams, Megan Davis, Gloria Williams, Joyce Semple, Doreen Thomas. I remember we were at an executive meeting one Saturday here, and then Doreen Thomas got the message that her husband died at home. We had to literally lift her out of the office, because when she left home, he was in good health. But as God would have it, he passed. Region 4, East Coast Demerara. And these are some names you should think about, and if you can do some research on them, it will be good. Myrtle Peer and Hyacinth Peters Holder. And I'll come back to those two names. Valdina Thompson, Judith Leps, who is still here with us, Opal Cruikshank, and Lois Moore. The two ladies I called first. If you go into Cane Grove, anytime you go to Cane Grove, look for a signboard which says Virginia Women's Homestead. And you will find a small scheme of 12 houses that were built by women. And the women who headed that project were Hyacinth Peters Holder and Myrtle Peer. They had construction, the men who were in the construction field as the supervisors, but the women did all the sawing, all the laying, all the fitting up of the houses. Women, Virginia Women's Homestead. Georgetown, and we had another breed, not the Hyacinth Gaudets and those. You had Verna Welchman, Stella Astana, Lucille Wright, Jean Maitland Singh, Vidyawati Tiwari, Dolly Small, Aubrey Yaw, Eldora Blackett Hall, Jean Persico, Sarah Johnson, and I thought somebody said Sarah is around. Sarah, raise your hand, please. You see that lady? You had, if you wanted Sarah Johnson, you had to get her before 7 o'clock in the morning or after 9 in the night on the phone. She used to leave home very early in the morning and walk the whole of Georgetown to do political work. Put your hands together for Sarah Johnson. Joan Bavigams, Megman Griffith, Joyce Gale. Joan is here? Congratulations to those warriors. Yes, also. Coming Green, I couldn't remember all the names. And I had nobody around. I should have called you. Yes, sir. On the East Bank, Doreen Gordon, Joan Haynes, Megan Archer, coming all the way from Long Creek, Gloria Hope, Rose Boyer, Fanna Branford, Sisters Foyer and Finance. I'm going through all the different regions. Region 5, Eglantine Peters, Eudora Cameron, Jacqueline McLaren, Rose Semple, Rose Thompson, Venus Springer, Malvina Burnett, Beatrice De Silva, Claudette Gangu, among others. Thank you for agreeing. Region 6, and I call some of these names. Armia Johnson came from Region 6 to the National Congress, the WRSM. Yvonne Hayward Ben came from Region 6 as well. Myrtle Dundas, Florizel Coupain, Maureen Caroon Ned, Hyacinth Stewart, Urani Johnson, and Urani has a niece that is here with us in this audience. Edith Bino, Irma Day, Bibi Fortune, Judith Marie, Barbara Pilgrim. I want to know is who making this. Just checking. Somebody is giving me the echo here. I don't remember all the names of Region 7, but we had Myrna McKenzie and Judith Velu. I have to tell you what happened to Comet Vibe when we went to Region 7 one year. Myrna McKenzie invited the chairman of the WRSM to come meet her women. So we went down, field trip, and we spent a couple hours talking with the women. But halfway through the meeting, a note came. And when Comet Vibe opened it, it said, the women of the WRSM are waiting. And that is when you realize, this place got two groups. We only knew about one. But when we got there was a particular lady, I come at Sam, I don't remember her first name. That Comet Vibe said, I don't see her here. Now that was the person Comet Vibe knew. But this group that Myrna McKenzie had was a new group of WRSM women. We had to finish talking with them and then go across to the other group. And we had to make the decision that Little Bartica must have two groups because we realized we were warring factions. And so as to have the political work go, we accepted both groups and they did well. Region 7, and that's obviously Region 7, Region 8, you have the famous Gloria Bancroft, who at this point is ill and I don't think can move around very much. There's a lady, Nurse Sego, I don't remember her first name, but she has been there from time immemorial. Diane Abraham, Prime Minister Green would remember her. She was tall, came from Monkey Mountain to the Parliament as a member of Parliament. Region 9, I met a young lady there, but she really belonged to Buxton, Waveney Dryden, and Genevieve Marie. Those are some of the people from Region 9. And Region 10, Evelyn Dotson, Elaine Davidson, Olive Walker Byrne, I'm coming to that, Barbara Henry, Sylvia Lynch, Macy Bard, Elsie McCalmont. And let me tell you about my experience here. I went to do some field work. Comet Vibe said, go meet the women. The women I knew was headed by Elaine Davison, among others. So I went there. I did not know Comet Elsie McCalmont. Elsie McCalmont was in the days of Jane Phillips Gay, so long before my time. And she was one of the founders and one of the staunch ones. But like everything else, you're getting on in age. So I think the younger women decided that they were going to have their meeting, and you don't involve her too much. I went to Linden, had my meeting, and I came back. And when I arrived at work the next morning, I had a message from Comet Vibe, you will go back to Linden and go to Comet Elsie McCalmont. When we got to Comet Elsie McCalmont, she had a group of women there. So Linden has always had more than one Now I name these people, and these are only some, because of the WRSM. During the period 76, and then by 1980 when we got the new constitution, the laws of Guyana were effective to benefit women. Delcy Bernard headed a committee that Forrest Burnham told her, go through the laws of Guyana and check all that talk about women and put them right, because we must have equality of opportunity. It was in the 1980 Constitution, Article 29, that mentioned equality for women. And the younger generation should go to the Constitution and, if possible, go through the Constitution to see all the laws. There are a list of laws that affected women. It was during that period that what we refer to as the Bastardy Act was removed from our laws. Because according to Forrest Burnham, all children must have equal rights. It was under our watch. And so our women were taught, we had training programs non-stop. And we were taught, you were groomed, you had sessions, you went out to the different areas to hold training sessions, upgrading sessions, whatever you want to call it, so that we can do the right thing. When I listened to Comrade Carol Corbin talking about decorum, if you go back to the history of Guyana, it was in 1980 that a number of women went into Parliament, the largest number of women that went into Parliament, because in the days before that, we didn't have so many. And because we had women across the board, you had market vendors, you had teachers, you had religious women, and all you could think about. The WRSM held a weekly training program at the residence. And the trainers were Celeste Dolphin, Yvonne Mbosi, and the Comrade Green, I'm coming to you now. The guy who was in charge of AEA, Adult Education, Newton Prophet. Those three people came every Thursday to speak with the new parliamentarians, the women. Yvonne Mbosi dealt with how you dress and how you present yourself in public. Celeste Dolphin, how you spoke in public. And Newton Prophet, the grammar and how you fixed your words. And as I said, they were ordinary women, but by the time they were finished with them for a couple of months, those women could have held their own. And I think at this point in time, the National Congress of Women should embark on some training programs for our young people. Among our women leaders, because you gave women the opportunity to do so much, we had women who became regional chairmen, women who became mayors and deputy mayors. We had vice chairmen as women. And women were in places that they were not expected to be. The WRSM had a program that we used to look at, and you did train women in non-traditional areas. We refer to it as that. Non-traditional areas meant that you did work that the men would normally do. We had masons, we had women driving heavy-duty vehicles, and so forth. I remember, and you go back to the history, it will tell you, the first two civil engineering women, first two women civil engineers in Guyana were Verlyn Class, who heads the engineering department at the University of Guyana, and Emily Dotson, who is now a lawyer. Those are the first two women who qualified as civil engineers. So women, we became leaders in different parts of the country, in different fields. The women were there to do it. when it was time for campaigning, we didn't send out people just like that to campaign. We used to have sessions with people like Victor Forsyth, communication, telling you how to speak and how to do what. I remember Robert Corbin. He wasn't the leader at that time. I don't think he was general secretary either, but he was in charge of campaign, having a training program for people from all over the country at Kurukuru. We had to live in for a week, and they went through the different things that you had to do. I remember sitting there, and then one morning he came up and he said, today we're going to have some trial runs, and we're going to have people coming up here and talking for 2 minutes on different topics that I will say. And the first speaker will be Cheryl Sampson. She's going to talk on women. And as he said that, the book, my folder with all my papers fell out of my hand. I mean, there was no way I could have picked it up to find the right order of the notes that I had taken. So I just put it down and went up on the stage. I mean, by the time I started talking, it was nerves nonstop. But then, into a minute of it, I found my footing and I just went on, and I went on for longer than I was supposed to. But the fact is that you were trained to do it. Coming to work at the WRSM, anyhow, I'll talk about that in another time. But the fact is that you had training, and so when people went out, they went out with singing from the same hymn book and saying what was the right thing out there. We need to have those. So as I said, we trained our leaders. I remember going to a conference in Cuba, and the young lady from the WPO from Quarantine, I think Barbara Pilgrim, I saw her somewhere. I think I missed your name in the Region 6. Did I call Region 6 names? Yes. Did I call your name? My apologies. She's not here? Oh, I thought she was here. Yes. And I remember there was a young lady from the PPP, Bijali Moti, from the Quarantine. And Bijali got up, as God would have it, she spoke before me. And we were talking about women's political activism and what they do in the countries. And when this girl got up there and she talked about how bad things were for women in Guyana, I asked myself, which country am I talking? She talking about? It was my country. And so I was glad that I had to speak after her. And so I gave in you normally would have to give me your script, right? Because you have to go to the prepared script so that the interpreters can translate. And I asked for a minute to respond to something that my sister said. And then I started to talk about the different places that have women mayors and so on. And I said to her, and unfortunately, what is bad about what she just said is that she comes from a community where there's a woman who is a mayor. Ask her, and if she's not going to say that is true. And I went on to do my thing. But you know, these are some of the things that we had to deal with. But we had women doing so many things across our thing. As I said, I didn't come to talk about the Jane Phillips Gays and the Shirley Field Ridleys and whoever. Today I wanted to highlight 3 women who are in this audience here. And I want to highlight it in the sense that I will show you the progression through their party. These 3 women came into the party, but they didn't arrive today and became leader tomorrow. They worked their way up. And these are some things that I want to express how things were done. There was a young lady who was a teacher, and she had just finished training college. She graduated as a trained teacher in 1975. But during her period at college, 73-75, she met a friend from school whose husband was working at what we know as national development. And Thomas Green remember Lloyd Higgins. And so because Lloyd's wife and I were friends, when he came for her in the evening, because I did night classes, he made certain that he dropped me down to the market. Dropped the person down to the market to catch the boat to go home. You either caught the 10:15 boat, classes finish at 9 o'clock, so you got to hustle down there. You either caught the 10:15 boat or you had to wait until midnight. So Lloyd made certain his car was there. But I remember him saying to the group of ladies who were friends with his wife, "You almost joined the People's National Congress because you all have nothing else to do now. There is no more college in the afternoon. You have time on your hands." The group of ladies decided to do that. But there was a plan that they will come to meet each other like every other month, go to the different homes. At the first meeting, everybody had one thing to report. Guess what? All of us turned group teachers. In those days, the People's National Congress party groups had group teachers. Because in 1975, I hope I have the year right, that was when they had the Declaration of Sophia. Am I right, come agree? And when the Declaration of Sophia had come out, it was a book that each party group had to look at and to study. And so the group teachers were responsible for making certain everybody in the group understood that. So that person became group teacher. And then you moved on. And the next thing you know, as I said, they were scouts. You had people who were looking for young people to bring into the organization. Ormia Johnson was one of the scouts. And you had so many others. This particular young lady I'm talking about had a scout called Doreen Bob. And Doreen invited her to a meeting. Remember, she was already a member of the People's National Congress. So Doreen invited her to go to a meeting with some women from Georgetown. She went to the meeting, but decided she was going to sit at the back because this meeting that they bring down was a set of old women. Jane Gay, Sylvia Carrington, anyhow. So the young lady sat down at the back with a romance novel, Mills and Boom. She sat through the meeting. She was hearing, but not really participating. And then the next thing she knew, her name was called. And she was made secretary of the group. Because by the time the person called her name, there was somebody who, I don't know if they seconded, but the no nominations closed. And that was it. So she had that job. Poor child, first time in her life she ever turned secretary. But one of the teachings she had in school is when you don't know a word, go to the dictionary. So she started writing, because you're a secretary now, you got to write to the national secretary here, the head office, and so forth. But she makes certain that when she writing her letters, she got her dictionary. And then the next thing you know, the national secretary is doing field work herself. She's coming to the different regions now to have meetings with the chairman and secretary, because remember, you're new groups, huh? You're just reorganizing. So she's coming to tell you what she expects and so on. And she came to the meeting and she says, there's some people in here that I know by name. Jennifer Basio, who is she? So Jenny gets up and put over her hand. And then a couple of minutes after, she said, Barbara Atlee, who is she? Cheryl Sampson, who is she? Put up your hand. and this sort of thing. And she is sort of now putting the names that she know to faces. But that wasn't all. She sat down there and then she started asking questions about Basdio. What she does, what qualifications she got, which school she went to, you know, this sort of thing. And there was somebody who was sitting in front who was related to her. And every time a question asked, and Dewey Bob gave the answer to Ormia, this note passed down. So by the time the meeting was finished, the young lady knew that that national secretary trying to mind your business. And she decided, I gone. And she disappeared. You think that was the end of it? The next week, the young ladies at church, and a boy came with a note from one of the scouts to say the national secretary is in the area. She has gone to 2 other villages, and when she passes back, she will stop. So she was invited into the lady's house, chatted, and then she left. The lady's mother gave her a glass of cherry juice, Sunday happy day. And she said when she drank this cherry juice, it was so refreshing because it's cold. And that is part of her history. She remembers it. The next thing you know, the lady at work, I think she was at work or something. Those days, you know how everybody got telephone. A policeman turns up at our house to say that he has come from this police station with a message from Mrs. Burnham for you to come to the residence the next day at 1 o'clock. So, I mean, it's the Prime Minister's wife inviting you to her house, right? You can't be rude. So the young lady went. And they had a conversation. And they talked for more than an hour. And after the conversation, after an hour, Mrs. Burnham said, I just want to let you know that you're being interviewed. The young lady says she drink, you know the thing is paste kite with at Easter time, gamma cherry, and she was locked down from then. So everything else Mrs. Burnham wanted to know, she had to ask a question, and she gave her a 1-word answer or a 2-word answer. You think that was the end of it? Remember, there was a scout. The scout been looking around. The next thing next thing she was told that she will be sent on a scholarship. And the girl said, me, I now join the party. I don't know anything. I can't be an ambassador. Mrs. Burnham said, okay, we will prepare you for that. There was a New Creek, had the Coffee Ideological Institute. And there was a long course going for 6 months. Bam, and she get thrown there. And by the time she was finished with the long course, that finished in February of the next year. It started in August and finished in February. March, April, she was on a plane to Cuba. Scholarship. And while she's there, she gets a nice long letter from Ormia Johnson inviting her to change her career from teaching to have one in women's work. Now, if you send me on a scholarship, how are you going to tell you no? You understand the story? So the young lady said, well, there isn't anything I can do about it. And by the time she came back from her scholarship, she was installed at the WRSM training program. You're trying to get her how you want her. That was what the WRSM was about. And it was so many other young people that moved on. And from there, you are put to speak at conferences. You are allowed to represent the country overseas and the like. The young lady that I'm speaking about is your humble servant. And I stopped there. And I stopped there because Genevieve gave you part of my history. WRSM, Education Secretary, and they got me doing everything. But you know something? It's good to be fast. Although I was in charge of education, I learned every program or project that this organization had. So that when I was sent to the United Nations in 1981, I was sent for 2 weeks. I spent 3 months. Because Ambassador Sinclair was of the opinion that I was on top of what was happening in women's work in Guyana. And I should stay there in third committee to meet with some of the persons who were doing women's work. The WRSM tie-dye division was just outside here. I knew about the tie-dye. And the tie-dye had asked the Voluntary Fund for Women for a donation, if they would give us some money to enhance the project. I didn't know who the Voluntary Fund person was. One day, Ambassador Sinclair said, coming to pick you up, we're going to lunch. Ambassador Sinclair turns up with me, and I'm meeting the head of the Voluntary Fund for Women. When I'm introduced, the lady said, oh yes, I know your name. You are in charge of the Pncr garment factory, because I used to have to write the reports. So she knew the reports were coming from this young lady. By the time I got back home after my stint, Ambassador Sinclair called me and he said, I haven't spoken with Common yet, but I had to call you to tell you. Thank you. The WRSM will get the donation. So when Common got the news and she called me, I smiled. And I said, great work. Some of you might remember the appropriate technology. We had appropriate technology throughout this country, where we used the greater mate, we used the cold pot, we did so many things because we were trying to save energy. When we started the dry fruit project, you see that thing that DDL got, that they do the country pride fruits? It was the WRSM that started it. We used to have sessions at Guyana stores, supermarket, showing the public how to use what. Where we didn't have money, we didn't bring flour, and we were using the rice flour. We had sessions to show people how to do it. I had a meeting, I had to go meet the man who was in charge of appropriate technology in the UN. The man said he knows that appropriate technology is done in Africa. He never knew it was done in the Caribbean. But we had our report book and our work not only in Guyana, but in the other countries in the Caribbean where the WRSM piloted. So when you get fast in the other projects, you are there, and so you're talking for everybody. I enjoyed my stint at the WRSM. And I get upset with some of my colleagues who had a way of saying, the PNC do nothing for me. For me, it made me who I am. Because I was an ordinary teacher out in the country doing her business. I moved on, and after 46 years of active service, 27 years on the Central Executive, I retired in 2020, retired. And I wish that the National Chairman of the National Congress of Women would understand what retired means. Comrade Barbara actually was trying to explain. While I came here as a young woman, there is another young woman in here, younger than me. As I said, we had scouts. And every now and then they used to pick me up because I didn't look fine, and you're gone here, you're gone there. I've gone to the East Coast, I've gone to Essequibo. I ain't got a husband, I ain't got no children. My mother used to say, Gulam, you're gone. So I have gone to every region in this country. But I had to go to East Coast, and I met a lady called Opal Cruikshank at Better for Acting. And I went and I did what I had to do with her. But then I had to meet the coordinator of that part of the East Coast, Lois Moore. And I was to remind Lois Moore that she had to do some scouting. She found a young lady, and she started bringing her to General Council and so many other things. I think it was in the mid-80s that the young lady then became fully involved. She was a teacher. First, I think she was a welder. She was a welder at the Gaisuko Estate. But then when we started doing programs in school for vocational training, vocational education, she became a teacher teaching in one of those, what do you call them? Community high school, and then you got, in some cases, you got like the Kingston PIC Center. And that young lady moved through school, and she got more and more involved in political work. She went to the RDC at Region 4. Being spotted by Lois Moore, as I tell you, the scouts used to go out. And then the next thing she knew, she got a call, and she was extracted from the list to go to Parliament. She was one of the RDC MPs, Region 4 MPs. And when she was finished with her Region 4 parliamentary stint, she went back to the region to work in the RDC. She served as vice chairman and chairman of the RDC Region 4. And I speak of Genevieve Allen. She came through the ranks, Genevieve Allen. She came through the ranks. She had to go to the training and everything. When I came to Georgetown to work, I had to meet some Tantarians in Region 4. What is the Tantarians? Them women in Region 4, bad for days. They sent me to talk to some of them. Where's she here? Where she come from? Who's the country boo-boo? All sorts of things like that. One day, when I got a tongue lashing, Violetta Sana called me. She said, come. What is your name? I hear they call you country boo-boo. Where you come from? I said, I flat West Coast Demerara. She said, what is your name? I said, Cheryl Sampson. She looked at me, and she said, Cheryl Sampson? I said, yes. She said, Uncle Neddy and Auntie Millie Cheryl? I said, yes. She said, you don't know me? I said, no. She said, I used to live behind you, the next street behind you at the end house. I said, Violet Asana? No. I said, the lady that I know used to live, the name Stella Hector. She said, me. I was before she was married. And Stella called the team, the group that used to give me help. She said, you see this child? I know she since she's small. And I know she family. Y'all left she alone. Left she alone. That same Stella Asana was one of the scouts in Isla Penitence. The other another young lady who the fronting, and she got group, and she printing pamphlet. What the group do, she got the whole community organized. And Stella sent and called her and said, come. I see this thing here what you doing, but you don't do it so. You gotta come and do the party. And whether she liked it or not, for a community group, joined with Stella's party group. And Stella's party group had people like Jean Persico, who I think was his own leader. And that same Sarah Johnson, they used to walk non-stop. Stella tell the young lady, go out and do X, Y, Z. And when she come back and it can write in the book, Jean Persico tear it up and send she back. She did that until she mastered it. She came through the ranks. And I don't know, some of the older folks will remember in 1992 when we lost the election. And we were coming to 94 to have local government election. The party decided that they must have some new blood and some young professionals must come in. And the then leader, Mr. Hoyt, called them citizens of, no, I don't remember it anyhow. But they were supposed to be the ones you could look up to. Raphael Trotman was one. Debbie Barker. And this young lady. And they had to do training. Some of them were put on the city council as councillors. But they had to go to Ocean View Hotel for months at weekends for training programs. And then they were sort of let loose. She just decided that she was not running for any other office, having served in Parliament and served on the Central Executive. And I speak of all the Anne Lawrence. We came through the ranks. We had hard times with some of the older folks, but we never gave up because we knew what they were saying to us was for the benefit of us. And they were doing things to make us better and to make the country better. And I say to the WRSM, the NCW now, I am retired, I'm a life member, I can say anything now. Now that we are at this point, we need to be scouts again. So we can look for some young people to come in. And we want those who can understand that you got protocols. Mrs. Corbin talked about decorum and so many different things. But we need you, because when we move on, just like how Jane Phillips and Viola Boran, they've gone. When we move on, we have to keep the People's National Congress reform alive. I say to you, my sisters, and my brothers who will support us, as we celebrate International Women's Day 2022, we must remember that Guyana needs us, and if we all work together, we'll be able to have sustainable development for us. Thank you very much.
Sisters and brothers, Comrade Cheryl Sampson is our life member. Before I continue, Comrade Mabel Bavigins is somewhere here. Life member, Comrade Mabel Bavigins, woman in the trenches. I want to nickname Comrade Sampson as the walking encyclopedia of the WRSM NCW. But it took all these years for me to know that there were scouts. And so when Lois Moore came around, the thing about it is that Lois Moore knew me because my godfather was the chairman of the Industry Pleasance NDC, and I think he was the group chairman and she was the supervisor. So I will visit that office from time to time. I didn't realize that she was scouting and that she got together with cousin Opal, and they determined, like I told Amanza, I walked into the meeting, I am at the door and I'm hearing my name, and then I heard nominations closed, and I'm like, I ain't even sit down yet, it's what y'all doing. And then is when they tell me, oh, you're elected to head the WRSM in this area. Comrade Sampson, I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to give her a standing ovation. Yeah, we can stretch. Sit down a little while. Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, I trust that I know that we are recording these programs, but I trust that we will put together a document for the future. Thank you very much, Comrade Cheryl Sampson. We are going to move straight into the fashion display. Michelle, right? Michelle, right? Or Nika? Joseph. The persons doing the fashion display, please be on standby. I'm going to invite Onika to come to us. Woman is boss? The calypso. Woman is boss.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to remind my women of how special they are and to give them some very good advice, all right? We all know that women is boss. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, women is boss, all right? He was God in heaven, he made us, make me from Adam Eve. But so many men take me for a pass, saying that we ain't what a thing. But you know it's time we stand up and speak. Whether single or you got the win. Every hit they say then it's boss. They won't eat us with barbecue sauce. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. I want to carry a baby for 9 months, cook, wash and clean for pick me and husband. Look around, we see women rising, leading from the front, in masquerade, in chief justice, engineers and parliament. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Come on, ladies, celebrate yourself. Oh, y'all sit down, sir. Shake. Come on, ladies, shake yourself. It's your time. We pray by the trials of a woman. We wonder how we survive. Let us run over light. We're ready to face the strife. Please tell me why some people accept us for who we are. You got to go gym and keep fit. Belly, belly big and full of shh. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Janet Man, come on. Last Friday evening, she prime and she ready for get some loving. Buy a cup of deals, that's for you and make it ready. And mix it up in the porridge. It goes up tonight is thunder. Tonight is murder. But when you start to write on the set, after 30 seconds, the pencil break. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Woman is boss. Come on, ladies, it's your time. Dustin said it's not, but I guarantee women's matter. She was always if she vexed me stash, going up early. She would soak up all day cause she want me, but the streets she